The broker, a shadowy mastermind with a network spanning continents, and Viktor Sokolov, a rogue scientist whose secrets could topple nations, had already set the world on edge. When a missile struck a hidden Ukrainian research facility before dawn, their plan moved from whispers in the shadows to a full-blown global crisis. The world awoke to news that felt heavier than anything in recent memory. Hours before the sun rose, a violent explosion ripped through a Ukrainian military research base located in an isolated forest region. The blast was so precise that investigators immediately suspected something far more calculated than a routine strike. The facility had been protected by layers of security, advanced radar systems, and underground storage vaults. Yet the missile had slipped through everything without triggering alarms. That level of accuracy suggested an attacker with access to technology far beyond standard battlefield weapons. As emergency teams sifted through the wreckage, they uncovered fragments unlike any they had encountered before. Engineers studying the remains noted unusual circuitry inside the missile pieces. Some components resembled American prototypes that had never been released, while other parts mirrored older Russian frameworks. The combination made no logical sense. It was as if someone had stitched together designs from opposing nations to create a weapon that defied identification. The discovery raised immediate fears of a deeper breach, one that could involve stolen classified data or insiders working from within laboratories that were supposed to be secure. The U.S. reacted within minutes of receiving the first intelligence reports. Government officials publicly declared the attack a direct threat, not just against Ukraine, but against American national security. The idea that fragments of U.S. designs had been used in an attack on a foreign research base suggested that highly restricted information had leaked into dangerous hands. Intelligence agencies mobilized rapidly, launching parallel investigations to trace the origins of the components, the weapons assembly, and the path it had taken before launch. In Ukraine, the atmosphere shifted quickly from shock to controlled fury. Officials demanded a forceful international answer, insisting that the attack had a purpose beyond destruction. They believed the missile was intended to wipe out evidence stored at the research base, evidence linked to a secret investigation into illegal trafficking of advanced military technology. That investigation, kept hidden from the public, had reportedly uncovered proof of a growing black market network capable of moving sensitive components between countries without detection. Satellite specialists analyzing the attack uncovered an even more unsettling detail. The missile's launch signature had been masked by a rare method of satellite manipulation that only a small handful of nations possessed the technology to perform. The launch appeared to originate from an empty expanse of land, yet readings revealed manipulated coordinates. This meant whoever carried out the strike had both the expertise and resources to alter orbital data streams, a capability normally reserved for top-tier intelligence agencies. While analysts traced encrypted communications, one name surfaced repeatedly in hidden channels: the broker. He appeared not as a soldier or politician, but as a shadow drifting through the underworld of global arms trading. Files recovered from the ruined base pointed to him as the coordinator behind a web of rogue engineers, corrupt officials, and covert financiers. His operations seemed to span continents, moving pieces of stolen technology like puzzle parts, destined for a larger purpose. The evidence suggested that the explosion was not an act of war alone, but a deliberate effort to erase the last trail leading toward this elusive figure. Public blame initially fell on Russia, but among the classified documents retrieved from its ruins lay a single clue hinting at a far more tangled truth, one capable of shifting alliances, exposing hidden betrayals, and revealing just how deeply the broker's influence reached. The aftermath of the strike sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles and intelligence networks alike. While Ukraine scrambled to assess the full extent of the damage, investigators uncovered a disturbing pattern. The facility targeted had been involved in projects that were not merely defensive. Some of the research was connected to experimental energy systems, drone technology, and communications networks capable of bypassing conventional encryption. If these systems fell into the wrong hands, the consequences would ripple far beyond the borders of Ukraine. Analysts quickly realized that the strike was more than an act of military aggression. It was a deliberate attempt to disrupt an entire chain of technological development. Evidence collected from the site painted a chilling picture of precision planning. Explosive residues suggested that the missile had been equipped with a guidance system that could adapt mid-flight, altering its trajectory in response to minor obstacles. Such technology was rarely seen outside the most advanced research programs. Forensic teams concluded that whoever executed the attack had intimate knowledge of the base's layout, its security protocols, and even the schedules of personnel. It was as if someone had studied the facility for months, mapping every corridor and vault before striking with surgical accuracy. Meanwhile, intelligence reports indicated that fragments of communication intercepted in the days prior to the attack hinted at a network of operatives moving across Europe. These operatives were linked to high-level arms brokers, shadowy financiers, and rogue engineers whose loyalty was uncertain. Analysts dubbed this network the Grid, a covert system designed to transfer illicit technology between continents without leaving a trace. Every recovered document, every coded message, pointed toward the existence of a global operation that had been quietly thriving in the shadows for years, shielded from even the most vigilant authorities. The U.S. government, already on high alert after the first reports, intensified its efforts. Teams of cyber specialists worked to trace digital fingerprints embedded within the missile's guidance software. They discovered encryption keys that were sophisticated enough to have been created only by someone with access to military-grade tools. This led analysts to a terrifying conclusion. The broker, or someone working for him, had penetrated systems thought to be invulnerable, combining inside knowledge with stolen technological blueprints to create a weapon capable of bypassing modern defenses. The implications were clear. This was not a simple attack, but a prelude to something far larger and more dangerous. In Kyiv, investigators continued to dig through the ruins of the base, uncovering a series of hidden rooms and encrypted storage devices. Among them were documents detailing secret collaborations between scientists, officials, and unidentified backers. One folder contained references to shipments of sensitive materials that had disappeared without record, leaving a trail that spanned multiple countries. Another contained coded schedules for movements of personnel and equipment, suggesting that the broker's network operated like a shadow government, invisible but omnipresent. As analysts pieced together the fragments, a sense of urgency grew. The strike had not only destroyed valuable research, but had also left a trail of unanswered questions. Who had authorized the attack? How had the technology been stolen? And most importantly, what was the ultimate goal of the broker? Every clue pointed toward a global web of intrigue, deception, and preparation for a conflict that could escalate far beyond the borders of Ukraine. What began as a single devastating missile strike now appeared to be the opening move in a much larger and more dangerous game, one that threatened to redraw the lines of power on an international scale. The world watched in tense silence as satellite images of the strike site were released, showing the eerie devastation left in the missile's wake. Entire sections of the research facility were flattened, while other areas remained untouched, as though someone had selectively targeted the most critical pieces of technology. Analysts in multiple countries pored over the images, noting anomalies in the blast pattern. It was not random destruction. It was a methodical erasure of specific projects, blueprints, and records. Whoever carried out the attack had a clear understanding of what they needed to destroy, leaving nothing to chance. Forensic teams in Kyiv began sifting through the debris, carefully cataloging every fragment of equipment, wiring, and circuitry. One of the most unsettling discoveries was a series of partially burned hard drives that, once decrypted, revealed evidence of illegal transactions and shipments of classified materials dating back years. Names of scientists, engineers, and intermediaries were scattered across the data. It became evident that the facility had been under surveillance for months, if not years, by someone who understood both its security protocols and its vulnerabilities. This revelation suggested an intelligence operation of unprecedented sophistication rather than a simple act of war. Meanwhile, Western intelligence agencies began sharing information about the broker, the shadowy figure whose name had surfaced in intercepted communications. Analysts pieced together a network that spanned continents, with operatives embedded in major research institutions, private contractors, and even government facilities. This network had the resources, expertise, and audacity to acquire top-secret technology and deploy it for purposes that were still unclear. Every intercepted message hinted at plans far more ambitious than a single missile strike. There were references to satellite manipulation, cyber intrusion, and even experimental weapon systems that could shift the balance of power in the region. The U.S. government, alarmed by these developments, escalated its security protocols. Cyber teams worked around the clock to trace digital footprints, while military strategists evaluated the potential ramifications of stolen technology falling into hostile hands. Intelligence analysts warned that if the broker's network remained unchecked, the United States and its allies could face threats that went far beyond conventional warfare. The sophistication of the missile-esque guidance system and the stolen components suggested preparation for attacks capable of bypassing standard defense mechanisms, creating a chilling sense of vulnerability. In Ukraine, investigators uncovered a series of hidden passages beneath the destroyed facility. These passages contained encrypted storage containers filled with documents, prototypes, and logistical plans. One particularly striking find was a ledger detailing covert shipments of advanced components to unidentified locations abroad. Each entry was coded, referencing dates, times, and cryptic identifiers, yet it painted a disturbing picture of systematic extraction and transfer of critical technology. It became clear that the facility had been targeted not merely for destruction, but to silence a trail leading directly to the broker's broader operation. Global security experts began to realize the implications. The strike was more than an isolated attack. It was a warning and a demonstration of capability. The precision, technology, and coordination behind the missile suggested that whoever orchestrated it had both the intent and the means to strike again. Every discovery, from the satellite anomalies to the encrypted shipments, painted a picture of a global criminal network that could operate above the law, evade detection, and manipulate international tensions to its advantage. The world had entered a new phase, one where conventional boundaries were meaningless, and the line between criminal enterprise and geopolitical strategy blurred dangerously. The question now was not whether the next strike would occur, but when, and who would be caught in its path. As investigators continued their painstaking work in Kyiv, the true scale of the operation began to emerge. The research facility, though heavily damaged, still contained fragments of evidence that painted a picture of a network operating with ruthless efficiency. Encrypted files recovered from the ruins revealed detailed schematics of experimental weapons, advanced drone technology, and secure communication systems. Analysts noted that many of these projects had potential applications far beyond national defense. They could disrupt global communication networks, manipulate surveillance systems, and even interfere with satellite operations. It became clear that the facility had been a linchpin in a much larger, invisible network. Further examination of the debris revealed an unsettling pattern. Certain rooms had been completely obliterated, while others, storing less sensitive equipment, remained intact. Explosives experts concluded that the missile had been programmed to target very specific areas, with precision that suggested intimate knowledge of the building's layout. Whoever had orchestrated the strike not only knew what they were after, they knew exactly how to get it without wasting resources. This level of planning hinted at months of reconnaissance, insider knowledge, and access to intelligence that few outside the highest echelons could possess. Meanwhile, the broker's network began to take shape in the minds of investigators. Cross-referencing intercepted communications with recovered documents revealed a web of operatives stretching from Eastern Europe to Asia and North America. Scientists, engineers, and intermediaries were all involved in moving highly sensitive technology across borders. Payments were routed through shell companies and offshore accounts, making it nearly impossible to trace the financial trail. Every recovered ledger, code, and encrypted message pointed to one man or perhaps one organization controlling the flow with chilling precision cybersecurity. Teams working with Western intelligence uncovered a deeper layer of threat. The missile's guidance system contained code that suggested manipulation of satellite feeds, allowing it to appear to come from areas far removed from the actual launch site. This meant the attack had not only been physically precise, but digitally concealed, evading conventional surveillance and monitoring systems. Analysts warned that if such methods were employed again, future strikes could occur anywhere in the world without warning. The implications were staggering. A single, well-planned operation could create chaos, confusion, and diplomatic tension on a global scale. In Kyiv, investigators made another alarming discovery. Beneath the facility, hidden compartments contained records of previous shipments, including materials that had vanished from other research labs across Europe. These files suggested a long history of covert operations, indicating that the attack was the culmination of years of planning rather than a spontaneous act. The pattern pointed to a singular goal: consolidating control over stolen technology, eliminating threats, and remaining untouchable in the process. The broker had not merely attacked Ukraine. He had struck at the heart of international security. International response was growing more urgent. As the U.S. and its allies worked to assess the scope of the breach, it became clear that conventional measures would not be enough. Military readiness, intelligence gathering, and cybersecurity protocols were being intensified simultaneously. Yet despite these efforts, every step forward revealed a more complex and adaptive adversary. The broker's reach, technological acumen, and meticulous planning painted the picture of an enemy operating at the intersection of crime and state-level intelligence, capable of exploiting vulnerabilities on an unprecedented scale. With each revelation, the world came closer to understanding that the strike was just the beginning, and the next move could change the balance of power forever. As the weeks passed, the investigation deepened, revealing layers of complexity that no one had anticipated. Analysts in Kyiv and Washington began to piece together a timeline that stretched back years, showing a deliberate pattern of infiltration, theft, and manipulation. The Ukrainian research base was just one node in a sprawling network of facilities across Europe, each quietly compromised and monitored by operatives linked to the broker. Every stolen blueprint, every missing component, and every digital anomaly pointed toward an organized campaign, not a single isolated act of aggression. Forensic teams combed through the remnants of the missile and the destroyed base, discovering evidence of advanced camouflage technology. The missile had been coated with materials capable of absorbing radar signals, making it nearly invisible to detection systems. Engineers noted that such technology required access to highly specialized laboratories and rare compounds far beyond the reach of ordinary criminal groups. The sophistication of the device suggested a coordinated effort between rogue scientists, private contractors, and unknown financiers who had invested heavily in creating weapons designed for secrecy and precision. Meanwhile, the broker's identity remained shrouded in mystery. Intercepted communications indicated that he moved like a ghost, issuing orders to intermediaries and operatives without ever revealing himself. His network had access to satellite feeds, encrypted messaging platforms, and covert transportation routes that spanned continents. One decrypted message hinted at the broker's ultimate goal: consolidating control over stolen technologies that could influence global military and communication systems. Analysts began to realize that his ambitions went beyond profit or political leverage. He was building a power base that could rival some nation states. In Kiev, investigators uncovered encrypted diaries belonging to a senior scientist at the destroyed facility. These logs revealed a growing fear among staff, who had suspected for months that someone was observing their work. Notes detailed unusual deliveries, missing components, and unexplained anomalies in their secure networks. The scientist wrote about a shadowy figure who seemed to anticipate every move, someone who could manipulate communications and erase digital footprints with ease. The entries hinted that the research base had been compromised long before the missile struck, making the attack not just a strike of opportunity, but the final step in a carefully orchestrated plan. As intelligence agencies analyzed satellite data, a disturbing pattern emerged. Multiple satellite feeds had been subtly altered in the weeks leading up to the strike, masking the movement of personnel, shipments, and vehicles. Analysts concluded that the broker had the capability to manipulate global observation systems to hide operations in plain sight. This realization sent shockwaves through defense circles. The attack on Ukraine was not just a single incident. It was a demonstration of how vulnerable even the most secure systems had become in the face of a technologically sophisticated adversary. The U.S. and its allies began preparing countermeasures, combining cyber defenses, satellite monitoring, and targeted intelligence operations. Yet despite these efforts, the broker's network remained elusive, adapting faster than any traditional response. Every recovered document, every intercepted message, every fragment of the destroyed missile reinforced a singular truth. The attack had been planned with decades of foresight, and the world was only beginning to understand the magnitude of the threat. What started as a missile strike in Ukraine was now recognized as the opening chapter of a global game of power, deception, and technology, a game in which the next move could reshape the balance of nations. Investigators in Kyiv and allied intelligence agencies began connecting the dots, revealing a chilling picture of how deeply the broker's influence extended. What had initially appeared as a targeted military strike was now understood as part of a sophisticated campaign to destabilize regional security while seizing control of cutting-edge technology. Analysis of recovered materials showed that the Ukrainian facility was only one of several strategic points across Europe that had been compromised over the previous years. These nodes had been silently supplying information, components, and prototypes to a hidden network, creating a chain that spanned multiple continents. Forensic teams discovered evidence that the missile's guidance system had been upgraded with advanced autonomous capabilities. Unlike conventional systems, it could adjust its flight path mid-course in response to shifting environmental conditions, obstacle detection, and even last-minute human intervention. Such a system required a level of computational sophistication that was almost unheard of outside elite defense programs. The fact that this technology appeared in a weapon deployed without warning suggested a deliberate and premeditated strategy, one designed to test capabilities, send a warning, and erase evidence simultaneously. Meanwhile, decrypted communications hinted at the broker's next moves. Analysts noticed patterns in satellite imagery, transport logs, and encrypted messages indicating the preparation of additional strikes. These preparations were subtle, leaving almost no trace in conventional surveillance channels. Yet their signals suggested the same combination of precision and intent as the Ukrainian attack. Intelligence officers realized that the strike had served as both a warning and a rehearsal, proving that the network could operate with unprecedented autonomy and global reach. Inside the ruins of the Ukrainian facility, investigators uncovered more documentation implicating several high-level collaborators. Names, locations, and coded schedules pointed to scientists, engineers, and intermediaries working in tandem across countries. One particularly alarming folder contained evidence of experiments that could interfere with satellite navigation, electronic warfare systems, and secure communication networks. These discoveries confirmed that the broker's ambitions were not limited to conventional weapons. He sought influence over infrastructure critical to national security worldwide. global intelligence agencies began to reassess their strategies. Cybersecurity experts warned that even the most secure systems could be vulnerable to the brokers' tactics. Standard defense measures, they argued, were inadequate against a network capable of blending physical operations with cyber manipulation. Analysts suggested that the Ukrainian attack was just a demonstration of what could happen on a larger scale if no preventive action was taken. Every piece of evidence recovered from the destroyed base reinforced a growing realization. The broker was not merely a criminal, but a master strategist capable of orchestrating operations that blurred the line between organized crime and state-level intelligence. In Washington, decision-makers evaluated the implications of this emerging threat. Military strategists, cyber specialists, and intelligence officers convened to coordinate responses, recognizing that the stakes extended far beyond Europe. The combination of stolen technology, rogue operatives, and precise execution created a vulnerability that could be exploited anywhere. The Ukrainian strike was only the first visible act of a campaign that might unfold over years, leaving nations scrambling to understand the full scope of the threat. Despite the mounting evidence, the broker remained invisible. Every attempt to track his location, predict his moves, or intercept communications met with a carefully orchestrated countermeasure. The network operated like a shadow empire, with eyes and hands in places no one had imagined. The attack on Ukraine had been the opening act, but intelligence analysts knew it was only a prelude. What followed next would test not only the resilience of national security systems, but the very ability of governments to respond to a threat that defied borders, defied detection, and challenged the assumptions of global defense. The world was on the brink of entering a new era of unseen warfare, and the next strike could arrive anywhere, at any time, leaving devastation in its wake. As the investigation progressed, the full extent of the broker's network began to emerge, revealing a level of sophistication that defied conventional understanding. Analysts in Kyiv and allied intelligence agencies traced connections spanning multiple continents. The Ukrainian facility, though heavily damaged, had been a critical hub in a global system of technology trafficking and clandestine operations. Documents recovered from the ruins pointed to previous incidents in other countries where sensitive components had inexplicably vanished, only to appear later in encrypted shipments routed through anonymous intermediaries. It became clear that the broker had built a shadow network capable of operating undetected in the most secure environments. Experts studying the missile fragments discovered evidence of materials and components that were otherwise unavailable on the open market. Certain alloys, exotic compounds, and advanced electronics suggested access to private laboratories, black market suppliers, and possibly even government contractors working outside official oversight. The combination of these materials, coupled with the adaptive guidance system, demonstrated a level of engineering that rivaled state-sponsored programs. Analysts concluded that whoever orchestrated the strike had decades of expertise, substantial resources, and a meticulous plan to avoid detection at every stage. Meanwhile, decrypted communications revealed the broker's growing ambition. Messages hinted at expanding influence into cyber warfare, satellite manipulation, and covert supply chains, all designed to consolidate control over technologies that could destabilize entire regions. Analysts noted a recurring pattern. Every action taken by the network was simultaneously offensive and defensive. Each strike or theft not only achieved immediate objectives, but also strengthened the network's resilience, ensuring that operations could continue even under intense scrutiny. This dual-purpose strategy made the organization exceptionally difficult to disrupt. Investigators also found evidence that the strike in Ukraine had been preceded by months of careful planning. Surveillance logs, encrypted travel records, and delivery manifests showed that operatives had moved undetected through multiple countries, gaining access to key facilities and smuggling components to assembly sites. The precision of the missile strike, coupled with the erasure of digital and physical evidence, demonstrated that the operation had been executed with military-level coordination. Analysts surmised that the broker had orchestrated the attack, not just to destroy a facility, but to send a message, to demonstrate capability, control, and reach to the global community. The political ramifications were immediate. Ukraine's leadership, having identified the sophistication behind the attack, called for a robust international response. The U.S. and its allies recognized that the incident was not just an isolated act of aggression, but a harbinger of more complex threats. Military and cybersecurity strategists began coordinating to counter the multi-layered capabilities of the broker's network. Analysts emphasized that the network was adaptive, decentralized, and capable of evolving rapidly, making traditional defense mechanisms inadequate. Despite the growing awareness, the broker remained elusive. Every investigative lead, every cyber trace, and every intelligence intercept seemed to vanish before yielding conclusive results. The more authorities discovered, the more apparent it became that the Ukrainian strike had been only the opening act in a carefully orchestrated global strategy. Analysts warned that subsequent moves could target critical infrastructure, disrupt communication networks, or manipulate advanced weapon systems. The world now faced a new reality, a shadow empire operating beyond borders, capable of striking with precision and leaving governments scrambling to respond to a threat that was both invisible and unstoppable. The stage was set for a confrontation unlike any the modern world had ever seen. The aftermath of the Ukrainian strike had left governments and intelligence agencies reeling, but for the broker, it marked only the beginning. Analysts now understood that the operation had been far more than a test of destructive capability. It was a demonstration of control, precision, and foresight. Every component, every encrypted message, and every manipulated satellite feed revealed an organization operating like a shadow state, capable of bending technology, logistics, and human networks to its will. The world was witnessing the rise of a threat that transcended conventional warfare, and the implications were staggering. Investigators discovered that the destroyed Ukrainian facility had contained the final pieces of a networked system designed to monitor and coordinate the movement of sensitive technology across multiple continents. These systems had been silently feeding data back to unknown locations, allowing the broker to track not just shipments and personnel, but global research developments in real time. By destroying the base, he had erased the trail while maintaining control over the broader network. Intelligence analysts realized that this ability to manipulate events from the shadows gave him an unprecedented strategic advantage, one that could not be countered through conventional military means alone. Meanwhile, decrypted communications revealed that the broker had begun establishing alliances with rogue actors in multiple nations. These operatives provided access to additional laboratories, smuggling routes, and technical expertise, creating a web that was simultaneously decentralized and highly coordinated. Analysts noted that each node in the network operated autonomously, yet all followed a single vision, the consolidation of power through stolen and manipulated technology. Unlike traditional criminal organizations, the broker's operations blurred the line between espionage, sabotage, and high-tech warfare, making him nearly untouchable. Global leaders convened emergency sessions to discuss the potential fallout. The United States and its allies intensified cyber defenses, deployed rapid response teams, and examined strategies to intercept the flow of stolen technology. But even as plans were drafted, experts warned that the broker's adaptability made him a moving target. Attempts to track his operatives often led to dead ends, while digital trails were obscured or erased with precision. Every action taken by the network seemed designed to anticipate and counter international responses, creating a sense of constant vulnerability. Back in Kyiv, forensic teams continued uncovering fragments of documents and encrypted drives, each revealing small pieces of the vast conspiracy. Some files hinted at experimental technologies capable of disrupting satellite communications, interfering with navigation systems, or creating vulnerabilities in global defense networks. Analysts realized that the missile strike had been a deliberate show of power, signaling that the broker could deploy these technologies with deadly accuracy. The implications for global security were sobering. The strike had demonstrated not just reach, but the capability to alter the balance of power on a strategic level. By the time a full picture began to emerge, it was clear that the world faced a new kind of threat. The broker was no longer just a criminal. He was a strategist, a manipulator, and a master of technology, capable of orchestrating operations that spanned continents and blurred the lines between war, espionage, and organized crime. The Ukrainian strike had been the opening move, the first visible act in a campaign designed to destabilize nations, control information, and dominate the flow of advanced technology. The stage was set, and the world now faced a shadow empire operating beyond borders, beyond detection, and beyond conventional understanding. The next move, analysts feared, could come at any time, and no one would be ready.